Here's why I love God so much. There's many reasons, but here's one of them. Because when I'm at my worst, he doesn't turn his face away from me. When I'm at my most broken, when I screw up the biggest, when I fail him the most, he doesn't go, nope, you're done. I can't look at you anymore. He sees me in spite of how broken I really am. And I thought about Easter, and I thought about Jesus and his disciples. And one of his disciples in particular got off track. He got off the plan that he thought God and him had. And what happens when we get off track often determines who we are at the end of our days. Because let me tell you, my friend, we all eventually get off track. But what we do when we recognize it defines who we are as a person. If you get off track and go, well, that's it, I'm over, it's done, move on, you just defined yourself as a person. But if you recognize it and say, wait a minute, I got to get back on track, maybe, just maybe, the God of the Bible will take your mistake or take your mess and he will show you the miracle that he can unfold in your mess. Are you with me? So there's a disciple who literally lived this out. His name is Simon. You also know him as Peter. And what's funny about him is he was a fisherman. His profession was a fisherman. And in a Jewish culture, this is what makes that really significant. If you were not a rabbi, rabbis were the highest status in a Jewish culture. So what that meant was if you were a fisherman or a carpenter or had a trade, you could make money, but the highest status was to be a rabbi. And all Jewish boys would go to school to a certain age, and then they would define if you were good enough to be a rabbi, you got to stay in school. If you're not, you had to go home and learn the trade of your father. So we meet this guy named Simon as a fisherman, which tells us immediately without telling us, he didn't get picked to be a rabbi, which is a high status in their culture. Well, Jesus sees him as he's fishing and his brother, and he says, throw down your nets and I'll teach you to be fishers of men. And they recognize this young rabbi, and Jesus didn't go, oh, here's our chance. Status, success, wealth, all the things that we want, we can finally get. So they threw down their nets and they began to follow him. And for years they followed him, and they were learning and watching. And what's interesting is they saw him teach revelation that was beyond this planet. They saw him do miracles and signs and wonders. And they saw him raise people from the dead. They saw him speak and calm seas and do things that were supernatural. And there's a moment where Jesus is hanging out with his disciples having dinner, and he asks them a question. He says, who do people say that I am? They jumped up. They said, well, some say you're the prophet. Some say you're John the Baptist. Some say you're Elijah. Some say this. Some say that. And then Jesus said to them, but who do you say that I am? I think the most profound question Jesus would ask you and me today is, who do you say that he is? And then I can imagine the disciples, there's a quiet as they're kind of eyeballing each other, like, who's going to say it? Who's going to say what we've been thinking? And Peter, being the leader, Simon, steps up and he says, well, I say that you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. You're the Messiah. You're here to rescue mankind from its sin. Get us back to our original design with God. And Jesus says, well done, Simon, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And on this revelation, I'm going to name you Peter, which means the rock. And I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell itself cannot prevail against it. And I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Woo! Dude, if I'm Peter in that moment, just got renamed Peter, I'm eyeballing the other disciples, I'm lipping to them. Nailed it. How you like me now? Because, he's got to be on cloud 9. He just nailed it. Jesus like, you are right, and I'm going to build this whole thing off that revelation. And then Jesus tells them, I'm going to go to my death as it's needed to be for me to redeem mankind, but I will resurrect from the dead. And Peter, that same guy, says, shh, Jesus. That is not the plans that we have for you. We wanted to overthrow the Roman government. I wanted to be your number 2. I wanted power, status, authority. You're not going to die on my watch, Jesus. And Jesus literally said to him, I rebuke you, Satan, because that means like the devil is working through him. He says, I will do it. And actually, Peter, what's going to happen is you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows when I am being crucified. Peter doesn't believe. He's like, no, dude, you're off. You don't get this one right. Sure enough, Jesus is now guilty, gonna be murdered. He's been whipped and beaten to a point where he's not even recognized as a human being. And he's about to die. And here's what happens. That night, Peter is lurking around as Jesus is being beat up and about to be crucified. And he's watching, and then people are noticing him saying, because there's a mob wanting to really actually lynch all the disciples. And they're like, that's one of them. He's like, no, I'm not them. No, that's him. No. Third time, the Bible says he cussed them out saying, I am not one of his disciples. And the rooster crowed. And the Bible says that in this moment, Jesus and Peter locked eyes. Jesus, broken, beaten, whipping, all the things, looked at Peter in his worst moment and says, I still see you in your brokenness. Here's why I love God so much. There's many reasons, but here's one of them. Because when I'm at my worst, he doesn't turn his face away from me. When I'm at my most broken, when I screw up the biggest, when I fail him the most, he doesn't go, nope, you're done. I can't look at you anymore. He sees me in spite of how broken I really am. And he looked at Peter in his worst moment. And Peter took it as he failed him. And so the Bible tells us then that Peter went back to fishing. He went back to being a fisherman. Jesus called him out of it. But then when he thought he disqualified himself, he went back to it. And then Jesus on day 3 resurrects from the grave, and we find this beautiful moment where these women are going to the grave and they see the tomb has been rolled away, and they go in there and there's an angel sitting in the tomb, and they're freaking out, and they go, no, hey, I know you're looking for Jesus. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He's no longer here. He is risen like he said he would rise. And here's the part that I want you to get. If you get nothing else, get this. The Bible then says that the angel said, go tell the disciples and Peter that Jesus is where he said he would be. Not just, this is so powerful. I want you to don't miss this moment. Here's Peter. I failed him. This thing didn't work the way I thought it would. I screwed up. I'm going back to my old ways. I've disqualified myself from God. And Jesus knows Peter so well and knows his heart like he knows your heart. He knows when we say, I can never again be back to what I thought things were going to be. And so I have disqualified myself. And so Jesus knew when he was giving the angel instructions, hey, get my disciples where I need them to be. But there's one of them who thinks he's no longer a disciple of mine. There's one of them who doesn't think he's good enough to be around me. And I need him to know by name, I have not disqualified you, Peter. And so Jesus says this powerful moment where he says, go tell the disciples and Peter, the one who doesn't think he's a disciple any longer. The one who thinks he's disqualified from this thing we're doing together. Get him because there's still plans for him. I haven't written him off. I haven't abandoned him. I haven't forsaken him. Even though he thinks he's not good enough, I will make him good enough by what I've done here now. And my friend, I don't know who you are or where you're at, but he is calling you by name. He's like, go tell Russ City and Bethany. Go tell Russ City and Carl. Go tell Russ City and Luke. Go tell the one who thought they weren't good enough any longer because the decisions they made, they are more than good enough in me.